So the tumor cell is dependent on large amounts of glucose and large amounts of glutamine. And those are the two primary fermentable fuels. So the differences between a normal cell and a cancer cell is primarily the way they generate energy. The tumor cell needs to ferment. The normal cells can respire. Because cancer needs the two fuels, glucose and glutamine. So basically the ketogenic diet is targeting your glucose and shifting the whole body off to ketones. Tumor cells can't use ketones because you need a good mitochondria. And if people say cancers use ketones, that would mean they have a normal mitochondria and they wouldn't be cancer in the first place. So you find a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding on a part of a significant number of scientists, by the way, that still are confused by this. So it's not just the lay public. They depended on the scientists who themselves are also confused, many of them, not all of them, about these issues. So the tumor cell needs glutamine and glucose. Some tumors are more dependent on glucose than glutamine. Some are more dependent on glutamine than glucose. Many of them need both glucose and glutamine. So it's one of these kinds of things. But if you take away both glucose and glutamine, I don't know of any tumor cell, none that we have ever found, can survive without their two key fermentable fuels. So DON is one of the drugs that targets and takes away the glutamine, whereas the ketogenic diet takes away the glucose. So together, these two work synergistically together and would be effective, in my mind, of probably managing the vast majority of all types of cancers. You have to realize that if you don't hit both fuels simultaneously, and they always say, well, the cancer cells are smart. They're not smart, and they adapt. They don't adapt. They're just using the fuels that are in the environment. And if you don't take the fuels away from the environment, it's going to look like they're adapting and it's going to look like they're smart, but they're not. So they're dependent on two fuels. And if they have access to those fuels, they will survive. If the fuels are taken away, they will not survive. It's not a complicated problem. Yeah. It's just that when you're chasing genes and you think cancer is a genetic disease, you don't think about any of this stuff. Cancer is one disease. It's all the same. Whether you have a lymphoma, a brain tumor, a colon tumor, a breast tumor, a bladder tumor, it's all the same. They ferment. It's such a simple. It's just like you can kill the whole group of them just by knowing how to use one tool. Lay people understand this better than the guys who are actually treating the disease.
Yeah, it's hard to teach people who know it all, or at least think they know it all.
Well, if they know it all, how come we have 1,600 people a day dying? I mean, obviously they don't know that much.
They have a lot of fixed ideas.
Yeah, well, and the tragic consequences is all these poor people suffering and dying. That's the consequences of the lack of knowledge. The next thing to do is use metabolic therapy, shrink it down into a tiny little thing, and then surgically debulk it. So you never stick it with anything. You just get rid of it. So once you understand the biology of the disease, you'll realize that most of what we do in the cancer field should never be done.